Ready, able, and willing.
Banging. Well, it's Carl here from Brrrains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short, and it's time for another trip to our desert island, where our guest or guests will be dropped off to spend the remainder of their years in peace, quiet, and isolation. However, as always, to help stave off boredom, we have enough room in the vault for a few items. That is 3 video games or books, depending upon taste, 3 horror movies, and 3 records. Plus, as always, 1 extra item that will be decided on at the end and isn't mentioned beforehand. My guest today is Bart. I'm going to try this. Bart Coninckx.
How about Coninckx?
Coninckx, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh.
In English. In Dutch, it's Coninckx.
Oh.
Longer, a bit stretched out.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, X now. I was looking at your last name, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. I'm glad it says Coninckx. That's great." Obviously, Bart is a multifaceted artist, specifically at this point behind a controversial project, which recently released a brand new album called Second Genesis. Bart, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. How's life going for you at the moment?
Sorry?
How is life going for you at the moment?
It's fine. It's great. I'm very busy. I have my own IT company that takes a lot of my time. And besides doing some sporting and having beers with the motor club, I also have Controversial, which is almost becoming a part-time job now. But I'm enjoying it thoroughly, so great, not complaining.
Okay, and obviously, the elephant in the room, the times we now currently live in. How have you been coping over the past, say, 12 months, now that we live in the COVID times?
Well, the secret to surviving that is having a good man cave. That's basically everything you need to withstand the COVID-19 crisis. No, all kidding aside, the first, let's say, 3/4 of a year, I was doing fine. I'm one of these people that is comfortable being on their own, and I enjoyed having a bit of time off from the world, basically.
Yeah.
But I do have to admit, after this time, the dread came creeping up on me. I started to miss social interaction, all these things. I do have a girlfriend. We're all, together all the time. It does make a difference, of course. But, I'm also a member of a motor club. We don't see these guys as much as we like to. And that's, I start to miss things. So I'm eager and looking out for the vaccination process, so we can all, take up our own lives and hopefully the way we were used to it before the crisis, So, but we're doing fine, I can't complain. I'm one of those people who have had military service. I had to do military service some years ago, and stuff I learned there is coming in handy now. We need to obey commands without too much criticism. Just need to do what is asked of us. And for me, I don't have a lot of effort doing that because of my military service, I think. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge for each and every one of us. I'm sure it's a challenge for you too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, as time goes by and months go by, and it continues to get longer and longer, I think that challenge becomes harder.
Right, definitely. Yeah, it is. And there's a maximum to it. I think there's a maximum to what people can bear.
Yeah.
What they can suffer through, and maybe we're slowly hitting that top of the story. So hopefully it's all behind us very soon.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's all about, as you say, as much as about keeping busy, which you said yourself, you've been keeping incredibly busy. What sort? You talked about you're an IT company and obviously the work and the music. How has that been keeping you busy?
Looking at the different things, the IT company, I actually think I have more work than I had before COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, for some reason. So I can't complain there. I basically do what clients ask me to do. And I, come to the conclusion this takes a lot of my day. So I'm not complaining, of course. This is how we survive. I would love to survive on Controversial, but in this day and age, surviving from music, no way. There's no way, unless you're Metallica, of course. And keeping busy for controversial is actually now we are in the public relations phase now. So the album is out officially November 20th last year, if I'm not mistaken. And now it's we are with Cleopatra Records, which is a great label, but they don't do a lot of PR for the smaller bands like we are. So that's up to us basically. So this means getting on Facebook, getting in touch with DJs, getting in touch with review makers like yourself, and this takes time. We have the internet. It's a great way to get in touch with all these people, but it's still in the old-fashioned way, typing a mail, reading the reply, all these things. There's also a bit of financial investment involved, because PR, if you want to have it done right, it's good to have somebody that does it professionally, but again, it costs a lot of money.
Of course.
Yeah, sure. So but all these things make my day look smaller and smaller in terms of length. So
in between all of that, though, what do you do to relax then? With all that work and that demand, what time do you get?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's very important to relax if you are that busy, and you have to look at relaxation as a means to be productive afterwards again, after you relax. I do quite a bit of sporting, so I run 2 times 20 kilometers per week.
Wow.
And 4 days out of 6 I do fitness at home. The fitness places are closed, obviously. So I do quite some sporting, and Sunday is what we call beer therapy. We drink a lot of beers, which is fun. So this actually happened yesterday, so I'm not really hungover, but slowly getting into the day after all these beers, but doing fun. So I think video gaming. Video gaming is a big one. I love video gaming. I spend at least 1 hour a day playing on my Xbox console.
Xbox, yeah?
Yeah, I'm in IT, and I know that the quality of the games on a PC, on a game PC, is much better. But I don't have the time, and especially don't have. I'm so much involved with computers during the day that I cannot spend another minute on configuring updates on my game PC or installing. And the console, you just pop in your CD or your DVD, it runs no problems. You game. That's awesome. So, and it's portable. If we go on, if we go travel, it happens that I take it with me. So I'm that much of an addict. Yeah.
Well, on that point then, I guess as we get into the first nominations, you're going to be focusing on video games, not books.
Well, I should add that I read a lot of books as well, but if you, let's see. Maybe we can do both. It depends on how much time you have.
You have 3 choices, so by all means, they're your choices. You're the one taking them, so you tell me what you want.
Sure. Do I 3 books and 3 games, or
mix
both?
Of 2, just 3 overall.
Okay, and I'll mix them. Okay, that's not easy, but yeah.
It never is.
Okay. Let's see. Do I start with number 1 and we go to 3, or do I start with number 3 and we go to 1?
In any order you want. You can do the one you would take the most, the least, or all 3.
Okay. After beer day, I think it's easiest to go from 1 to 3. Let's see. Okay, so for 1, I think I would have a book.
Yeah.
A book that's been very inspirational to the musical project I'm in, and that would be the Satanic Bible by Anton Lavey.
Oh wow!
It's somewhere behind me in the bookshelf over there. It's been of a major influence on the ideology behind Controversial. We are a left-hand band, so I'm very in depth to Dr. Lavey, even though he's no more with us. I should read it a second time actually, because it's been almost, I think, 12 years or 10 years ago I read it, but it was a seminal piece of work. It was amazing. It opened my eyes to things. It helped me progress, getting out of what was a very Catholic and religious background. You know, I come from that place, and this book helped me a lot. I don't think it's an end stop. It just, you know, it fixes some things in your psyche, and you can move on and you can develop further as a person. But to me, it helped me get rid of all these Christian concepts like sin. You know, the Satanic Bible does away with sin. You know, there's not really sin, unless or up till the point you start hurting someone. And I like that concept. You're free to do what you want, but the limits are, your freedom stops basically where somebody else's damage or hurt starts. And I think that was a nice theme in the book. So I would place that one on number one.
Absolutely, that's incredible. I mean, obviously, such a controversial figure, Anton Lavey. It almost transcends what lessons can be learned from the book, so to speak, and it just gets focused on what is a figure that is polarizing between love and hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he
definitely.
Obviously walked out of it with a positive slant, a positive take on things that have affected your life, which I guess is just incredible to hear. I've never spoken to anyone who's talked about it in such a way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, incredible.
Okay. Yeah, I would think that the effect of the book is somewhat similar to a lot of people. I know it has been a major influence for a lot of people. It's just, you know, you can see it by the sales numbers. It's a bestseller, to say the least.
Do you think people kind of maybe, if it has influenced them because of the notoriety surrounding the book and the man, they keep it quiet and keep it to themselves, perhaps?
Yeah. I think, you know, as you know, there's now a sort of a second wave in Satanism, you know, being led by the Satanic Temple. But this new wave actually differs a lot from what Anton Lavey was so-called preaching. The new wave is more about community and about social and political engagement, which is fine. But it's, in that respect, it's different from the old way. The old way is more, it's more about, you know, being different and being confident in being different, and it, you know, it revels a bit in being antisocial, you know, and it's certainly not political, the old Satanism. So for me, it's difficult to see that somebody adheres to both things. I seem to think they are, you know, it's either or. There's also this
ideologies almost.
Yeah, they are. You know, I've been active a bit in the Satanic Temple, but I had to get out because I got into fights with people with big egos. And long story short, we had a discussion about the pentagram. What the orientation would be. This is very significant because if it points up, you know, the 5-point star, if it points up, it means it's a link to paganism, yeah, which is something completely different. And you know, my take was on it was, you know, the orientation needs to go down. That points really to, you know, the opposite of heaven, hell, down. And you know, we got in a huge fight about that, lots of egos and you know, colliding. And at that point, I just stepped out of that ideology. So, you know, I respect what they do. They're very, they've evolved a lot in what's it called, LGBTQ. That is a major thing for them. But yeah, it's a different thing. The old way is more about finding acknowledgement for the exceptional being you are, meaning being different than society, while the new thing to me is more about community and gathering around things. So if that answers your question.
That's very interesting. Yeah. What's your second choice then?
Let's take a game and maybe. I've not been playing for a long time. I'm not an experienced gamer. I played a bit when I was very young. This was in the Doom age, the very first Doom. And I think one of the last games I played was Quake and or Duke Nukem. I mean, it shows just how old I am. So I've never touched games since then, and I started doing them a couple of years ago with the Xbox, the very first Xbox. And now I have the Xbox One X, and you know I pick a game from that era because the technology is so much better. I think it's not a popular choice, but one of the games that impressed me a lot was Titanfall 2.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, because I'm much into science fiction. And this game did a splendid job of combining science fiction and action, and it was an excellent game. I learned it doesn't really score well in what's it called in what you call that? Yeah, like the top 50 of all best games, you won't find it there. But to me, it was one of the best.
What was it? Are you a single player and a multiplayer kind of guy in Titanfall 2?
No, I'm a single player. I'm awful at doing multiplayer. I get my ass kicked all the time, so I just refrain from doing that. I just do single player. Because it's an interesting point, because the first one was actually a multiplayer game. First Titanfall, if I'm not mistaken. But I did not buy that for the reason that I suck so bad at playing games. I'm old. I'm slow, but I enjoy it. It's really fun.
No, absolutely. Okay, your third choice.
Third choice. Let's see. Maybe go back to. So movies comes after this, or
that's a little bit later on.
Okay. So again, a book or a movie, a book or a game. I'll go for a book again. A book that changed my life a bit, in how to, well, not entirely, but on how to look at life. I mean, as an objective thing, and how to look at the world around me. So this was The Naked Ape by, what's his name again? Desmond Morris, I believe.
Okay.
The biologist. Because this book basically looks at a human being as being an animal, just like any other animal in the animal kingdom. And Morris looks at the behavior of people just like as if they were animals, and that was so interesting. He explains some things, why we do things. A funny one, for instance, did you read the book yourself?
No, I've never read it.
Okay, an interesting one, a funny one was that he explains why women wear red lipstick.
Okay.
So he deals with this scientifically, and to him, his theory is that we are descendant of apes. Yeah, and apes used to run on all fours.
Fair. Yep.
And for the women to in some way signal that they were ready to mate, their genitals will become red. Yeah. And this was visible because they were on all fours.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. But we humans, we evolved and we started to run or walk upright. So this signal disappeared. So we had to replace this by another thing, and to him this was red lipstick. So red lipstick is actually a copy of the genitals of a woman when she's ready to mate. And I found that so hilarious it was. But I think he's right, basically. And the same goes to for breasts. He explains breasts are like your buttocks, your behind, but we started to walk upright, so they are a bit invisible, out of sight. So they had to be replicated by something else. So we grew breasts, which makes a lot of sense because they serve no other purpose. You don't need breasts to milk your baby. You just need nipples, so to say. Damn, how did we get on this subject? It's, anyway.
It sounds like he's got some. It does sound like he's got some interesting theories that, as you say, almost start to ring. You hear them and you think, oh wow, okay, that does make a lot of sense.
It does. Basically, the book is really interesting to read. It reads like a novel, and it helped me to look at the world scientifically. I did get a scientific education, so it was already there. But you do not see in school that red lipstick is a copy of a female's genitalia.
No, and with anything in science, you can have a science background, you can have a science education, but with science, it's constantly evolving, and you're always going to learn something new.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm reading a lot of books on cosmology. This is a field where there is non-stop evolution, in the findings.
Yeah. There's a lot still to learn about that.
Sure.
So, with you then, take us back to the very beginning. Where did your interest in making music come from?
In making music, well, it probably starts out by listening to music. That's,
of course.
Yeah. So this is a process that most likely starts at a very young age. In my case, it was having a portable radio at home with a cassette player in it. It was the age of cassettes. Again, that's how old I am.
My age as well.
Really? What's your age, if I may ask?
36.
36. Okay. Yeah. That's quite different still. Anyway, so and you buy music, you copy music. Those times you basically copied your tapes, or you recorded from the radio station, which was always a timing problem, to avoid the DJ having in your song and stuff like that, having the DJ in your song. So at one point my parents sent me to music school, which did not help me at all. It's such a waste of time, you follow this thing for 5 years, you get out of it and you learn basically nothing. They teach you how to write, they play a melody and need to write it out on paper, like a dictation. That's useless, if you make your own music. After 2 years you need to pick an instrument. So I was interested in playing the drums. That looked cool to me. Of course, this instrument had a waiting list like you don't want to know. So my parents decided it was a good idea to have me learn the trumpet, which did absolutely nothing for me as well. So did that for a couple of years, and then as soon as I could, I threw it away, quite literally. And let's see. My taste in music, most people probably have some sort of DJ or person or bar playing their music, and it helps them discover new music. To me, that was my cousin. He was 4 years older, still is 4 years older than me, and he listened to things like the Sisters of Mercy, which was to me completely unknown, that kind of music. He listened to Frontline Assembly, Front 242. So all these bands to me were, it was a revelation. It was different music, but it was powerful and it was well made and it was dark. And I gelled with it. At that point in time, I started gathering alternative music, buying records, buying CDs, going to shows. Then later in life, when I was a student, I started a band, a cover band, because I forgot to tell you that I learned to play the guitar on myself when I was a teenager, probably with the same motivation as every starting guitar, to get girls, which failed miserably. But there was let's see, when I was 14 or 15 years of age, I unfortunately became ill for a long time, for 27 years, and one of the effects of the illness was that I had no energy, and this influenced also creativity. So I wasn't really able to do anything. I bought some gear, I tried, I invested time and money into it, but it was really hard. So there has been a hiatus for a really long time. At one point, this illness got fixed. I got my energy back, I got my creativity back. I had some income, to spend, so I started my new studio 2.0. Started writing music, and in a couple of months, second Genesis was there, and I picked up where I left, years ago. So that's a good thing and bad thing. A good thing is I finally got around to it. Bad thing is, I had to wait for such a long time, and I'm 50 years old and I have to start from scratch basically. It's still my first album, so yeah, I'm happy it's there, but it's been a long pregnancy.
Absolutely. But at this stage then, considering that long wait and the time, and the fact that we have finally reached a point where you're able and capable to release that music, does that just mean your creativity is bubbling over at this stage?
Yeah, it happened by itself. I should be careful not to make it sound as easy as it does. It's still some work. You have to dedicate time into it. Not just learning your equipment and reading manuals. It's also about learning how to record. I went to a recording training course, in a studio.
Okay.
I read a lot. It's a craft, Yeah, there is craftsmanship and there's creativity, and you need to have both.
Yeah.
The writing process was like effortless. I do think that I've been storing creative energy for a long time because I couldn't really do anything with it, but it was there. It was there in it was potentially there, and it probably grew, and the ideas were stacking up. So once I was able to start this creative process, it all came out probably. I'm very curious to know how it will be like for the second album. Will it be this effortlessly? I don't know. We'll have to see. It's an exciting but also a straining thing, the second album. It should be better than the first one, but lots of bands. For lots of bands, their first album is still their best, because they never were able to really get to the same level of quality. So very curious how that will go. But yeah.
I think if you, with the level of stuff you will have learned as well during the making process, the writing and the creation of the album, I mean, that can only benefit you going forward.
Yeah, sure. And there is some degree of confidence, because in all modesty, I have had yet to receive a bad review for second Genesis. Everybody loves it. There's some criticism left and right. Like some people are, I have 13 songs, and I believe only 6 or 7 are with vocals. Somebody said you should, elaborate your songs more, meaning that he would have loved to hear more focus on it.
Right.
But for me, the songs are fine like they are. I do not feel I have to have vocals in every song. So, but that was, an example of a criticism I had. But that's it. Nobody really says. Maybe they're too polite, but nobody really said your album basically sucks big time. Nobody said this. So, I think, in all modesty, we created something worthwhile. But yeah, the second album should have at least this level of quality, and hopefully I will be able to do it. But for me, it's a stressful question, basically. Yeah.
We'll get into a little bit more unique elements of controversial in a bit. But before then, second nominations then. Horror. Are you a fan of horror?
Yeah, absolutely. Big fan. Yeah, science fiction and horror. These are basically the only types of movies I watch. Unless it's with my girlfriend, because she hates both.
Okay.
Which is typical, I think, probably. Yeah, horror, big time.
Brilliant. Then should be easy three choices, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I need to think about the third one a bit, but we'll get to that. So the first one for me, old movie. I'm not sure 80s or 90s. Maybe I can quickly check on Wikipedia or something, because that's interesting to know for me as well. Let's see, what time was this? 1987.
Okay.
The first Hellraiser movie.
Of course.
So at this point, I had seen quite some horror. This is still VHS era, so long time ago. But the other horror movies were more typical. How do you call that? Slash movies or something like that.
Yeah.
Or things with ghosts or things with demons. But Hellraiser, jumped out of that drastically and offered also a new sort of aesthetics. I'm not sure if you saw this movie, Hellraiser movie.
Massive fan of the entire series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember, that at some point, so this movie starts out like in a typical setting in a house, and there's a couple, and I believe they were fighting and stuff. And then the movie shifts all of a sudden into a world where you see hell, or what is supposed to be hell, and then you have these creatures that are nothing like anything you saw in other horror movies, certainly not at this point in time. And it offered a sort of, it was scary, but a sort of, how should I put this? I felt at home in this world of being scared. It was familiar. It was, I felt like a friend to Pinhead, so to speak. It gelled with me.
Wow.
For some reason. Unfortunately, I saw all the other movies as well. I didn't quite think the others got to the same level as the first one, and some were really bad, in my opinion.
They were.
Not sure which one. I think the third one sucked a bit. There was
Hell on Earth.
Yeah. Wait, I can. So, so we have first Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2, Hellbound, Hellraiser 3, indeed, what you just said, Hell on Earth in 1992. There was also one, that's maybe the one was in a space station, and that was a bit of a weak idea. It never really came.
Bloodline, the one, part in the space station, part set back in the past.
Exactly. That's the fourth one, apparently. And there was also one made by fans, and that was really, really bad. I'm not sure if it's integrated officially in the series. And the last one, I wasn't really hot on that one either, but the first one was groundbreaking to me. So that would be number one.
Oh, great choice. Okay, your second choice then.
Second choice of movies. Okay, let's take one that is both horror and science fiction, and shows again how old I am. The first Alien movie.
Everyone, it seems to come up in all of these Desert Island Dregs and Alien. As soon as you said you liked sci-fi and horror, my head went, he's probably going to say Alien.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Of course, it's iconic.
1970s movie, I think, even.
Yeah, I think 79.
17, yeah. What's his
Still holds up.
Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott was the director and producer. Yeah, this guy is at that time was a genius, far ahead of his time. Also again, the kind of movie I like, the kind of movie where you have no expectations or no idea what it's really about. Nowadays we first look into imdb.com to see what the ratings are, what's the story. We look at the trailer, but for Alien and Hellraiser, there were no trailers on popular television because it was too scary of a movie. So you start watching this movie and say, okay, science fiction, and they're having lunch at the table and they're laughing, and it's all of a sudden you have this thing burst out of the guy's chest, and you go like, oh, what the fuck's this? What's happening? And the tension was created, and it was never released in a movie. Also, it was very claustrophobic in the space craft, and then the creature was amazing. I found out about H.R. Giger, the guy behind the artwork and the idea and the concept of the alien monster. I even have tattoos. This arm is completely Giger. Yeah. It's so sad he passed away by something as trivial as falling from a staircase. Yeah. He was old. But the Alien movie, wow, it was genuine fear. Not the kind of familiarity with fear in Hellraiser, but generally, oh fuck, this is scary. This is a scary monster. With the slime dripping, the close-up, with the mouth in the mouth. It was genius. It was pure genius.
It's one of the classics that 40 years later, over 40 years later, in fact, still holds up. You could watch it today and still feel the same way you might have done when you first saw it back in the 80s, perhaps.
Sure thing. I should watch it again. It's been quite a while. But yeah, I usually hate watching movies again because I hate repetition. I find it's never as good as the first time.
That is true. Okay, what's your last choice then? You said you weren't sure on this one.
Something just came to mind. I hate it's become this popular, but I'll sketch the context. So I was living by myself for the first time, a bit bored on a Wednesday night. I said, you know what, I'm going to watch a movie. Went to the movie theater, which was a 2-minute walk, and I see this poster, and it said Blair Witch Project. So what the hell's this? Let's check it out. So I had no idea what I was in for. Went to the movie theater, got in, saw that there's only 3 other people. I said, oh, this is probably not a very popular movie. And it started, and this one was the very first in its kind with the so-called amateur camera that was used, the footage that was found after people disappeared. And I was, sucked into the movie without any background of additional information, and it was so realistic and convincing. At the first time in my life, I had to get back to my house again in the dark, in the street. I'm not a scared guy, not easily scared, but man, at that point in time, I was, scared shitless. It was an amazing movie to me. Second one wasn't all that great, and lots of movies followed with the same concepts. Some were good, some were not, but to me the king of movies where amateur footage is concerned is still Blair Witch Project. Yeah.
I understand what you mean by the fact that it's obviously got such a level of popularity now that it has become an iconic horror up there amongst the classics.
Sure, yeah. It also showed you didn't have to have a lot of money to make a good movie, which is a nice idea.
And they made a lot of money from it. That movie was incredibly successful.
Yeah, it's a genius idea. They were the first ones, so all credit goes to them. Huh?
Yeah, you can't knock that. You can't knock that, regardless if you like the movie or not. You cannot knock the fact that that was a really clever, unique idea at the time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So going back to controversial then, it is ultimately, particularly the album, a blend of ideas, a blend of your imaginations, your influences and styles. So imagine I am someone who has never listened to your album, has no idea about you, and I come up to you and I directly say to you, explain to me in as a succinct way as possible, what is controversial? What would you say?
Me and succinct. Okay, let's let's try to. Okay, basically in a few words. The name of the band kind of points it out already. So the controversial does not only apply to the subjects and the themes in the songs, but also in the way we approach music. So in order for in any degree to gel with controversial in its music, you need to be open to how should I put it, you cannot be close-minded and have strict rules on how music should be. We've put that behind us, and we do not do it deliberately, like, okay, let's now create a song that's like nothing else, and let's throw all of the conventions aside. It's not a conscious effort like that. It's more like, okay, let's I just open my mind, see where my creativity leads me to, and just do it without any boundaries or being restricted by rules. And then you get the music as as we have created it. It requires some openness in the listener. If not, you'll be saying, okay, but the guitars, they sound different in every song, which they do. Why do we have songs with vocals? Why do we have songs without vocals? Why is there a Homer Simpson sample in the song? I don't know if you got that one, because I had a I had that one in
that's well buried. I like that.
Yeah, that this is all a result of me not feeling limited by any conventions or restrictions. So if you're into that, if you like that, then you will have found the essence of controversial, I think. Sure.
I was going to say, I think it's also fair to say, like, well, that does imply that it's a hodgepodge of ideas. I don't necessarily think, having heard the album and reviewed it and stuff, that's not necessarily fair. There is a balance here. So for you, when it comes to balancing what is all your musical ideas and things that you want to stick in, do you struggle to get that balance correct, or is it something that does come quite natural to you?
The latter. A big reason and motivator to create this music is that I want to make what I want to hear. I basically make what I miss in other music. Not that there's not music like that. Of course, there are influences which are, to some people quite clear in controversial. Everybody says you were influenced by Ministry, which coincidentally is true. It's very true. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
In regards to the balance of getting that balance correct on the record, you mentioned combination of influences.
Okay, right. So basically, I make the music that I'm not hearing myself or not hearing enough, and the balance thing is probably regulated by that motivation. As soon as you have an idea of what you want to hear and you're able to manifest it, it contains some sort of balance all of a sudden. So it was, it happened by itself, just by having the motivation to create music that fits your aesthetics, your music aesthetics. And these aesthetics have been formed by quite a lot of bands among like Ministry, for instance.
Okay, well then let's get into some of your tastes. And with your third and final nominations, the 3 records you'd take with you.
Okay. Number 1. Probably atypical choice, but for me it was a great album, and you know they suck today, but at that time they didn't suck yet, and that is the "And Justice for All" album by Metallica.
Oh, interesting that you chose
Yeah.
Injustice.
Yeah. Nobody likes that album.
Hmm.
To me, it's the best one they ever made.
Wow.
Reasons being, you know, it's the same thing again as with the movies. You have no preconceived idea. Somebody passes you a cassette or a CD or a vinyl, I can't remember. And I think I started out by getting in touch with Justice for All. That was the first album I heard by Metallica. And I got to know Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All and Master of Puppets?
Yep.
Yeah. Later on, but it started out with Justice for All, and for me, this music, when I heard it the first time, it was cold in some way. There was a distance built in the music. It was a bit reserved, but it was very, very intelligent. You know, it was very chromatic. It was not conventional at all. You could tell they mastered their instruments incredibly, which was for me something interesting to listen to. It gave the record more substance, because you know today, back then, and even today, a lot of people look at metal as being a bit of a animalistic bunch of noise.
True.
Yeah. While what these guys did, you know, I heard classical influences there. There were tempo changes. It was very atypical for a record. But you know, so well done. Even the sound, you know, there's a lot of criticism on the bass missing, and you know, I wouldn't have wanted to be the bassist of Metallica at that time. But the end result was such a wall of sound. It was still to this day, it's the most amazing record they ever did, if you ask me. Well, you know, themselves, they think more like it seems like they look a bit down upon this album.
I think so.
Yeah, while it was seminal, it was a revolution, if you ask me. So that would be my number one.
That's awesome. Okay, your second choice?
Okay, second choice. Yeah, the Ministry thing. We cannot get past the Ministry thing.
That is.
Yeah. Yeah, I should put it there. Let's see. What's the mind is a terrible thing to taste. Because of I went to a bar at that time, an alternative bar, alternative music, and they played thieves from time to time. I got the lyrics completely messed up. I thought they were yelling "cease fire." I've heard that wrong for about a year, and then bought the album and said, "Oh fuck, this is Thieves Liars and not Ceasefire." But you know, it opened some gates in in the subject of mixing things that you wouldn't mix necessarily when you would have listened to all music before. So this guy was using drum computers, guitars, samples, and I think he was one of the first to do so. I think that's why I would have put it on number 2. I think, you know, if I in some way would be able to have recorded the times I've listened to these albums, it would also be in this order, like a couple of thousand times to Metallica and then a bit less to Ministry and so on. So there is a correlation there, I think. So that would be number 2.
That's great. That's two very unique and different bands offering different things. So I'm fascinated to see what your third choice is going to be.
Yeah, if you know it, the third choice. But spot number 3, I would put Front 2 for 2. And I need to cheat a bit because the one single is called Tragedy for You, and the other thing is Tyranny for You. I'm not sure what the album's name was and what the single's name was, but I can quickly look that up. From 242, I think the album was Tragedy for You. Let's see. No, it's Tyranny for You. The album is Tyranny for You. Yeah. I bought this album just like going to the Lavey project, unprepared, unannounced. Went into the record store. I knew the label, the band's name from my cousin that listened to it, but I hadn't listened to any music by it. So I thought it was a cool cover. Back in the day, you bought records because they had cool covers on them.
Of course.
Yeah, and then you start playing them and you find out that it's, again, a very intelligent record. Have you had the chance to listen to this album yourself?
It's not one I know of.
Yeah, well, they were far ahead of their time. And with that album, I learned what the power of electronic music could be.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't take me long to go check out a song, a gig by from 242 somewhere in the vicinity of Brussels back then, and it was amazing. In some way, it was a lot more powerful than a metal performance, because electronics, if you pump up the volume and you go all the way, it's so much more energy. The bass is amazing. So, and yeah, they looked and sound very intelligent. It was very atypical music. They, just like Controversial, they, not that we were, of course, influenced from 242, but the similarity is that they were very unconventional in creating music. They just, they had synthesizers and samplers, no education whatsoever, and they just did their thing, and what came out was amazing.
Incredible.
And if you go, the sad thing is that they, at this point, have already since a couple of years, they don't produce any new music anymore. They only perform, and I think that's their money-making machine.
Yeah.
I regret that. I don't really understand it, that if you have, these guys can live off their music. If you're in such a position, why wouldn't you make new music all the time? I can't really get my head around that. But it is what it is. What they do, what they did is take their old synthesizer stuff and they put it into a danceable format, which they perform, and it's great band, great way of making music, great influence as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. We're coming to the end now. I wanted to ask you, what's a realistic goal that you would like to achieve for Controversial and your music over the next 12 months? Do you have something in mind, or is it just going to be continuing to work on the new album?
It will be a mix, probably. I'd like to start with a new album, because the current one, it's recently being released, but it's actually 6 years of age. Yeah. I tend to do everything so slow. In a way, I'm not sure why that is, but I seem to always need a lot of time to do something. But the second album needs to be there before we can go perform and do gigs.
Yeah.
Reason being that we have a lot of songs without vocals. And that's hard to do on a stage. If you, as a singer, you don't have anything to do for a complete song, how will you capture the audience? So I think it's a better idea to have a second album.
True.
And have for an hour's time of material so you can perform. Hopefully this will be possible with the COVID-19 thing in 2021. So that's one thing. I think the PR thing never stops either. It stops if you stop, obviously, but it's if you want to attain some sort of leverage, in this DIY age, you need to invest the time.
You need to keep going. It's an ever
Yeah.
constant moving train.
It is. And the moment you let go, people's attention span is like, it's so small. You really need to work at being consistent and showing new things. But I hope to bring the bands. That would be for me the ultimate goal and the ultimate dream. As an example, I also like the band, the early work by the band Pitch Shifter.
Oh yeah, of course, Pitch Shifter. Yeah.
UK bands. And I remember listening at their first album and thinking, wow, this is so cool. Nobody knows this music. It's so great. Would the guys know in Pitch Shifter at this point in time? Would they know that some guy in Belgium in his car is listening to the first industrial album? And I thought that was an amazing idea. And that to me is the goal. That some kid in Alaska, so to speak, has a controversial tape or CD or Spotify stream, doesn't matter, and is listening to our work and going, yeah, this is great music. I like to be in the alternative realm. I do not want to create an album like the Black Album by Metallica, where all of a sudden you become pop music.
Yeah. I can't see that happening.
No, never. Me neither. Whatever happens, I will always make dark and alternative music, and I don't think I will ever go. I see Frontline Assembly, if you're familiar with that band. I see them having a project where they have some sort of new age music that's very popular and sells a lot more than their other stuff. I can see that if they really like what they're doing, it's great. I'm not against making money from music, but the aesthetics to me needs to be where it is now and not change a lot.
No, that's cool. I think that's a perfect way to end it. The idea that Controversial going forward will continue to do what Controversial does best. Bart, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun. This was my first live interview, by the way. So
really?
Yeah, you popped my cherry.
Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?